We do want to bring in Robert Sanders, a lecturer of national security at the University of New Haven, who joins us now to speak more on this. Robert, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Good morning.
Good morning. Now, I do want to start with Prime Minister Netanyahu rejecting the creation of a Palestinian state after the war is over. This rejection coming despite calls to do just that from the United States and the European Union. So I'm interested in understanding what implications this could have and what this means.
Well, in 1948, when Israel came to life from actions of the UN backed by the US and most of the rest of the world, the intent was a two-state solution, an Israeli state and a Palestinian state, with Jerusalem being an international city. Israel has rejected that. In fact, the Trump administration allowing Jerusalem to become the capital, where the US put an embassy, also added to the problem that we have on the table here. The end of the day, what is the end state that Israel thinks they're going to have in Gaza? If they destroy Gaza, they created and have already created a humanitarian crisis that now affects the rest of the region. What do they do with the remaining survivors? They killed 25,000 of a 2 million population. I'm not sure how many more they expect to kill in order to get to Hamas. They haven't gotten to Hamas. And the end state that Netanyahu seeks doesn't have a clear definition or rationale behind it. You can't kill an idea, the idea of a Palestinian state. You can kill Hamas fighters, but they're doing few of that and more deaths of civilians, women and children mainly.
So I do want to speak to that because you had mentioned that you cannot eliminate an idea, and that would be possibly terrorist organizations. Supporters would continue to possibly join into that belief. So what does that mean from that perspective? Could this become just an ongoing war if Hamas is not entirely eliminated?
Well, it is an ongoing war, and it won't end until the parties reach a political solution. Secretary Austin said a couple of weeks ago that Israel, the IDF forces, will win the tactical battle. They will defeat Hamas because they just have the technical knowledge and the ability to do so. But they're going to lose the strategic war. And the strategic war is the rest of the world is going to look at Israel now, as South Africa has filed in the International Court of Justice a claim of genocide against them. We had recently in Connecticut, where I was at, a Palestinian protest which turned violent against businesses. Horrible thing. Don't support that, can never support that. We should never have that going on here or anywhere else. But it happened. We have around the world these days of solidarity where people are marching in support of Palestine. Well, remember, this started because Hamas murdered 1,200 Israelis and, oh, by the way, 200 Taiwanese that nobody seems to want to talk about, who were the equivalent of American workers who come across the border from Mexico to pick our food. Well, that's what happens in Israel, and these people are from Thailand. And we won't get to a solution on the ground. You'll get to what Secretary Austin said. You'll get a tactical victory over Hamas for a time, and you'll lose a strategic war by doing what Kaplan said a long time ago in the Next Time. You're going to turn all of these youth into the next combatants.
Now, the United States continues to be Israel's strongest allies, and we've been hearing from U.S. government officials time and time again saying that they will continue to support Israel, while also saying that allies can disagree. But if this war continues, if the humanitarian crisis continues, if the two-state solution is continued to be rejected, could that change? Could the relationship between the United States and Israel change? And if so, how?
I think it will change, and it won't change positively toward the Israelis. At some point in time, the American people will say, like they did in Vietnam, enough is enough. We are not going to support and accept this type of fight in our name. And that's what happened. Now, Vietnam's different, fighting communism and taking down the dominoes, whereas Israel is our democratic ally and becoming less democratic based on what Netanyahu wanted to do with the Supreme Court, but democratic ally in the region. We want to continue to support them, but they're making it very, very hard. And as the death toll rises and the rest of the world begins to go, well, my ability to support Israel in this fight is waning, I will have to say that I will, as a nation, not be able to move forward in the same way I have in the past.
And when could that potentially happen? What does that look like? What would need to happen or perhaps not happen in order for that perspective to shift on an international level?
Well, you look at the reports that are coming out from the World Health Organization, from the UN refugee organizations, and they talk about hepatitis A now is spreading through the Gaza Strip at 16 times the way it had been in November of last year. The vast majority of the dead and wounded are civilians not in the fight, not Hamas fighters, which was clearly the goal of Israel, was to take out these Hamas fighters. Well, they're not achieving their goal. What they are achieving is mass death of non-combatants, which now is also being investigated by the International Criminal Court as a potential war crime. Israel's refusal to move toward a political solution only perpetuates the fight and creates additional fighters and the potential for losing the support that it has around the world, because they were initially the ones.
Robert, before we let you go, is there anything else, because this is now day 108, Israel has maintained its position in terms of its priority, which is to eliminate Hamas and then free hostages, rejecting a ceasefire, rejecting a two-state post-war. What should we be on the lookout for? What could change in terms of this landscape?
Well, one of the things on the table is Netanyahu's future as a politician in Israel. He's going to have to stand at some point for re-election. They, like the United States, Israel, like the United States, often does not push out a leader during conflict. But once the conflict wanes, his popularity is already at its lowest ebb, and it will go lower as these hostages don't come home alive, because, as you announced earlier, another one was announced to have been killed today. And several of those are Americans, so we have a vested interest in this, as we have from the beginning with our ally. We need to look at the rest of the Israeli government, the part that supports Netanyahu and the part that doesn't support. Which part of the Israeli government is going to take over and be in charge? And that will determine whether or not Israel will move toward a two-state solution or not. Israelis right now, and understandably so, aren't in favor of doing anything that would support Hamas and any connections to Hamas, Iran, Hezbollah, etc. The United States is neither. But the United States is in support of a political solution, and a political solution that has been on the table since 1948 is a two-state solution, a two-state structure in what was once Palestine, which is now Israel, which still has Palestinians living in it.
Again, we will just have to continue to wait and see, as today does mark 108 days of the Israel-Hamas war. Robert Sanders with the University of New Haven, thank you as always for taking the time to speak with us. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. You have a great day.
You too.